Everybody, and welcome back to yet another episode of Against All Odds. And as I say at the beginning of every podcast, it's a purely selfish reason that I film this podcast, because I get to interview the most inspiring people that I find inspiring and share them with you. And today is no exception. I've been so excited to get Jodie on the show. How are you, my lovely?
I'm really good, thanks. That made me a little bit emotional, that.
Oh,
like,
bless you.
but your reason for doing it, I love that. Oh, yeah, I'm really good. I was just saying to you before we came on, I've had a day of lots of talking, so I feel like if my voice gives out, it might not be a bad thing.
I love it. Well, you're a pro in kind of grief and healing and trauma and things like that, aren't you?
Yeah.
You're like impacting so many people. So I was like, I've got to get you on, because
But,
everything that you say on social media it just hits home. And I know that you help so many people.
yeah.
And I always say, when you are helping that many people, there's
Mhm.
always a reason behind it.
Yeah.
And you've had a journey, haven't you, mate? So where did this all start for you?
Oh, big question. Where did it all start? So I guess my life has had many evolutions. I feel like I've kind of almost I feel like I've rebirthed more times than Madonna. And that's saying something, you know. It's a childhood. My childhood was very chaotic. I grew up in a very strict Christian religion. I'd even go so far to say as a cult. And so a lot of religious conditioning around sexuality and what it meant to be a girl, you know, growing up in the world
Yeah.
and not really understanding any of that. I also experienced sexual abuse at the age of 7 or 8 with a teacher. And it's really interesting because the incident itself, I was very dismissive about. It was kind of like, okay, that happened. It was the after bit that was I really struggled with me. So I really struggled with. So he bullied me after that. So kind of like made me sit up against a wall in class, called me stupid, said that he'd taken test papers off me and ripped them up. So that felt like it was worse because it was long, like it just was never ending.
Yeah.
And then series of toxic relationships, not not knowing how to look for what was good for me. I didn't, my self-worth was so low. I really just kind of bounced from one shitty relationship to the other. And I ended up falling pregnant. I didn't know I was pregnant, just put on loads of weight. And eventually I was like, I don't think I've had a period for a very long time.
Oh, no. Oh,
Went
no.
to, so I was pregnant, and I was like, well, I don't. Like, I'm going to be a single mom. Like, what do I do? Like, I'm not prepared for this. I don't know what. I don't know how to have children. And it turned out that I was actually pregnant with twins. So it was like double whammy. And I kind
Wow.
of, yeah, I kind of prepped myself all for, like, I was like, right, I'm going to do this. My mum was so supportive, and I went uh, basically I had a twin stillbirth at 24 weeks. So that was pretty hectic. And I lost my dad a few years earlier, which was quite, we sort of nursed him. He had cancer, we nursed him. And then yeah, I kind of buried that grief with the twins. It was like
Yeah.
a lot of shame tied up with it. You know, I was like, I wasn't in a relationship. Maybe my body wasn't like, I wasn't looking after it very well. Like maybe I wasn't meant to be a mum, all that kind of stuff that we tell ourselves. And then I experienced quite a very, very difficult narcissistic relationship. And I guess the effects of that have been very long lasting, like coming out of that relationship and really starting to heal. So that was a very long way of kind of getting around to how I got to this point. But I think my real healing journey started properly around 5 years ago, where I was kind of like, the thing that came through the most was that I hadn't really grieved for my twins, and I had to unpick all of that and
Yeah.
all of that. And in amongst that, I've had to unpack and unpick all of the trauma that I've experienced throughout my life. And I guess that's an ongoing work in process. I almost feel like once I've dealt with a layer, it's like my body is ready to deal with another layer of what's there and looking beneath that. So I think because of my own experience, I have the capacity to hold a lot in terms of, when people come to me to work with me, oftentimes grief is an underlayer of something. So whether they're
Yeah,
unable to have a child, or whether they've had a stillbirth, or whether they've lost themselves, perimenopause, like, who even am I
yeah,
anymore?
yeah,
So I think grief is such an underlying current for so many of us women that we don't always have the space or the capacity to deal with
yeah,
in real time.
yeah. Because that's it. Because life kind of just throws things at us as
Yeah,
well, doesn't it? And it's
it
got
really
things
does.
kind of get pushed to the back. Yeah.
Yeah.
So how did you start kind of working through that? Because it's very painful, isn't it?
Mm,
And
yeah.
two, like, how do you start?
Um, I I think when you start, it's almost like a triangle, isn't it? So you start from the top. So it was like, what was immediately affecting me was that. So my husband at the moment, our relationship wasn't great. I was at the point where I was burning out. I was a teacher at the time, and I was suffering quite badly with like anxiety, depression. I was on prescription medication. I drank too much at the weekends. But it was like that iceberg situation, like, and I only really started to deal with that top bit, and I wanted something different. I'd been on and off prescription medication since I was 25. I was like, this can't be the answer. Like, I want something
Yeah.
more. And that's when I really started to be like, okay, so some of the things that really had such a huge impact on my journey was stopping drinking alcohol. So I'm 3.5 years not drank alcohol. I had done almost a year before that, but then I went back on it for a year. So 3.5 years, no alcohol. That enabled me to get to know myself, like really know myself.
Yeah.
And a lot of the work that I've done is in the field of sexuality. So really understanding how I feel and how I process the sexual trauma, the religious trauma, the birth trauma that I've experienced. Like, how do I process those things in relation to my own body? So somatically, rather than it just being like I go
Yeah.
to therapy and we're talking about it, I looked at it as a holistic thing, like where is this being stored in my body, and how do I begin to process that?
I love that because your body does actually store trauma,
Yeah,
doesn't it? So you
yeah.
can, like, I hear quite a few people say you can have the perfect mindset, you can work on the perfect mindset, but your body will hold trauma.
Yeah, absolutely.
So that is
Um,
true, isn't it?
yeah, absolutely. And for women, think about the things that we experience as a woman, like girls, their periods, as soon as we start our period, that's not always like met with like grace or excitement. It's like, oh my God, my period started. But then there's lots of things that can be either wrong with your period, or you have heavy periods, and there's a lot of shame tied up in that as well. Maybe there's been a time
Yeah.
you bled at school and all the boys seen, so we've got all these things stored. And so for a lot of us women, we hold a lot within our pelvic space, like in our pelvic bowl. So that you think about things, then when you go on to have maybe use for sexual interaction, like there can be a lot of tension stored within that space.
Yes.
So the work that I've ended up doing on myself, and which I now do with other women, is really around understanding what's stored in the body, like that residue of, and I call them unprocessed or undigested life events, because not everything's trauma. Me feeling neglected by my mum because she won't buy me an ice cream one day is not trauma, but my body may have stored that as oh my God, my mum doesn't care about me. You know what I mean? So we're processing
Yes. Yeah.
undigested things that have happened in life that make us think that we're not good enough.
Yeah. I love that. So would you say trauma like cause illness as well in the body?
I believe so, yes. I think
Yeah.
when you think about anger's inflammation, isn't it? So resentment, anger,
Yes.
those things that we're holding on to can create dis-ease. And Joe Dispenza calls it that, doesn't he? Like dis-ease within the body. That
Yeah.
because it's stored, if we've got no outlet for something, you think about a time maybe where you've had to keep anger in for whatever reason, and it ends up getting to the point where it explodes, doesn't it? And I think sometimes
Yes.
those events, those life events or those traumas implode rather than explode in our body.
Yeah. So learning to know yourself, and I think a lot of people don't know themselves. I will say, I
I,
think it took me quite a while, and yeah, I think if you'd asked me 5 years ago if I knew who I was, I'd have probably
yeah.
said yeah, but actually no.
I
And
agree.
it's
And I think it's an ongoing process as well, Amy, because I think what we're very good at doing as humans, we're very clever at going, I'll let myself be as honest as I want up to a certain degree. So, you know, and I'm thinking, I'm just talking this morning about shadow work. And it's like our shadows are created as protection mechanisms against maybe a belief or something that we were told by a parent. And so when we create these
yeah,
shadow elements of ourselves, then we want to hide the shadow elements because they're not very particularly nice. So we kind of put them away, you know, and it can be really affronting to kind of be like, you know what, actually, Amy, I'm like a really jealous person, you know, because, you know, we've done lots of self-development. I would hope that I'm like praise other women or like but actually like there's this piece of me that does quite jealous. But that's not easy to kind of sit with and work with. Do you know what I mean? I think a lot of times
mm,
we're happy to discover the great bits about ourselves, but not so happy to
yes,
those bits of discomfort and the honesty around those, because no one's perfect, you know. And I
no,
don't buy into this narrative that we're trying to achieve this state of like I'm an ascended master. You know what I mean? I think we're here
yeah,
to
yeah,
earth to live. I think we're here to experience the whole spectrum: anger, rage, sadness, grief, joy, ecstasy, love. Like all of it makes us human.
yeah. And I suppose you've got to love the bad bits of you as well as the good bits, right? And be
100%.
okay with that.
Yeah, 100%. And
Yeah,
that in itself is the process, isn't it? You know, I think I always think about it in stages like, can I acknowledge this piece of me? For is always kind of the first bit. Can I acknowledge this piece of myself? Can I offer some acceptance of this piece? You know, because you think about maybe some time that you've hurt somebody or done something not very nice. Can I accept that version of me? Okay, can I show compassion to that
yeah,
version? And then the ultimate bit is, can I actually love that version of me? So it's almost like the 4 stages of shadow work of embracing those bits that we'd rather people didn't know about us or didn't see.
yeah. That's it. And it's, I suppose that's heavily like around like trauma as well. Because this is where you develop kind of fear and like being ashamed and like you say, like not being good enough and things like that. So I suppose that can be quite upsetting when you look at yourself as a whole,
Yeah.
because
Yeah.
it's like all of a sudden I had somebody else on the other podcast and he said when you become self-aware it's like he'd literally took his clothes off in public. That's
Yeah,
what
I
it
love
felt
that
like.
analogy. Yeah, I
Like
love that analogy. Yeah.
yeah,
And I've heard you know, the people saying like it's almost like you kind of wish sometimes you hadn't been woken up, you know. Like life is easier
yeah,
before we kind of went down
yeah,
this path of going, you know, who am I? What are my values? And what are the bits about myself that I've created to protect elements of myself, you know, and how do I process the stuff that is sat dormant for a very long time, you know, for a lot of us. Yeah,
yeah,
big, and it's big stuff,
yeah.
isn't
So
it? You know yourself.
yeah, yeah. And I suppose like with like anything, like especially trauma, but the limiting beliefs that go with that
Yeah.
is quite huge, isn't it? And I think a lot of people that have some trauma don't realize it is a limiting belief, because I suppose it's over the years, you just tell yourself that subconsciously, and your world can get quite small, can't it?
Yeah, because and I think one of the things that I certainly did was my pain and the things that happened to me became how I defined myself. Um,
Yeah,
you know, I was very much a person 5, 10 years ago that it was like, if somebody had been through something challenging, I'd been through something 10 times more challenging. You know, I'd lost more people than you have.
yeah,
That's very much my mentality. Like, you don't know how hard you've got it. You want to spend a day in my shoes. And I think the trap of victim mentality is we we're trying to get the attention that we needed when we were actually going through those traumas or those life events.
Yeah.
We're trying to get what we need. So we're almost like, you know, our inner child is kind of outgoing, but nobody sees me, nobody understands how hard it's been for me. And actually, a lot of the work that I've done is that's almost reparenting work of being able to give those versions of me what I needed at that time, because I didn't have access to them necessarily within my network at that time.
Yeah.
But yeah, it's a dangerous trap, isn't it? The victim mentality, and so easy to fall into.
Yeah, and quite difficult to get out of as well, at first.
Yeah.
Because it is people's self-defense, isn't it? It's their,
yeah.
you know, yeah, like, don't expect too much of me because I've been through this. It's that kind of thing, a massive self-defense. So hats off to anybody who's kind of got themselves out of that, because it's not easy. You're having to take responsibility as well, and then that self-defense drop, and it's scary, isn't it? Change for anybody, whether you are starting a gym routine or, you know, going out socializing with new people. We don't like change.
No.
So to change that is quite daunting.
It really is. And I think you hit the nail on the head there. It's that self-responsibility piece, isn't it? Of saying, I mean, we both worked with Paul Mort for a bit, and I think one of the phrases that always stuck in my head was, it's happening for me, not to me, you know. And when we're going through difficult situations, that's kind of like always something that I keep in mind. It's happening for me, not to me. So it's just that it sounds like a very subtle shift, but actually, when we view stuff that's happening as an opportunity for growth, and I know that is much easier said than done when we look at the world that we're existing in at the minute. You know, we're bombarded daily by horrific atrocities, you know, and I know your own personal experience is you know, you've had many challenges, and when you're in it, you know, hearing that is like, sometimes we're like just clawing for the edges of the void, aren't we? Like, will I even make it through the next day? And it isn't until maybe afterwards that we can look back and go, okay, right, I can see what was going on there. I can see my part in it. I can see the responsibility piece for me.
Yeah, absolutely. Because there's two sides to everything, right?
Yeah, for sure.
Yeah, but it's not easy to see at the time. So talking about the like physical, like sorting it out, how do you have to change this to change something in here, or what, or does it go the other way around?
Well, that's a good question. So I always say, I think there's three kind of areas in which we work. One's the mindset, one's the body, and one is the energetic. So almost like what we're putting out into the field. And in terms of your mindset, you know, things like reframe, like adjusting things, seeing from a different perspective, affirmations, that sort of thing. And the body is I don't think it's a chicken and egg situation. I think it's more that maybe when we get to the point where the mindset stuff has reached its capacity, because I think we all do that same thing. You know, we read a new self-development book and we do the 3 life hacks that it's told us to do, and it works wonderfully for about 3 weeks, and then we've completely forgotten what we're doing, and before we know it, we're back doing all of those old habits. So what shifts in the body is we're retraining the neural pathways, like we're saying, okay, you know, and whether that's creating a new feeling sensation that goes along with an emotion or an event or an experience or a memory. And we're always retraining the body and how it reacts to certain situations. And one of the ways that I do that is through pleasure. So by retraining the brain, by using pleasure as an instrument or a tool to recalibrate or transform memories or events or things that have happened, is a really powerful way to kind of do that.
Yeah, do you know, it's incredible because it happens on a huge scale. So obviously we've just had like 9/11, and you know, how many people were saying that they just felt meh that day, not even realizing what day it was, because your body, even though, what was it, 24 years ago that happened, Like everybody can
Yeah.
remember where they were when that
Yeah.
happened
Yeah.
and how that feeling. And then like years later, without even realizing what day it is, you will feel it in your
Yeah.
body somewhere. You'll just feel. So that's how kind of easy it is.
Yeah.
And it's impressive that our bodies can do that, but it's also
Yeah.
quite shocking because it means there's a lot of people walking around with a lot of trauma stored up in the body.
Yeah. And I think like, the way that I kind of often think about it is that we feel charges. So a certain person may activate a charge in you, and you kind of like, I don't know what it is about this person, but I just don't like them. Like, and we just feel our whole,
Yeah,
you feel your whole body like moving away from them physically. And I think that it's an opportunity to kind of go, okay, what else is going on here? Like, where is this charge coming from? And oftentimes what it is that's being activated in us is a piece of our own wounding that we've either forgotten about or we've buried so deep within ourselves. And so, and what I'm not saying here is like every time that something happens, you must then go and do like loads of healing work. But it's an opportunity to kind of go, okay, so why is this so activating for me? Like, what is my body trying to
yeah,
tell me?
yeah. It's so impressive. It's like it's an Apple alarm clock, isn't it?
Yeah. Yeah. But
Our
like we
bodies are
said before,
completely an alarm clock.
so many of us aren't connected, to our bodies. So many of us aren't kind of aware of the signs and signals. We bypass them all the time with um especially women, I think, because we have so many roles to play within the world.
Yes.
And it's like, you're tired, but you still got to feed the kids, you know? You've got a headache, but you still need to get up and read and work, whatever it is that you need to do, with your menstrual cycle, you're bleeding, the last thing, but you still got to get up and go out to work. Like, so we've just trained ourselves so much to almost work to like a masculine um energy or capacity, which is very, very different from women and from females. So I think we're under a lot of external pressure as women, and we've moved so far away in that. I don't think there is a big movement for women becoming far more attuned to their body and understanding. But it's a constant work in progress.
Yeah. Did you think that's why we kind of hold trauma as long as we do? Because I suppose it's like, right, this has happened, but then we needed here, 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 and then you've not really got time to sit and reflect. So I
Yeah.
suppose,
Yeah, I think we're
yeah,
constantly kind of like the next thing. And I think it's I think one of the things that's happened is we've, in the 80s, we had a huge feminist movement, and, feminism has done so much good for women, and it almost took the male blueprint and just said, okay, so how do we replicate this so that we can become successful, and then put that on women, and then women were far more out of the house working, and lots of opportunities opened up for them. But it was like it's like there's still this pressure as a parent, as a mother, that you've got to be really successful in your career or your business, and you've got to be a really great mum at home, and then you've got to be a really great partner. And if you're not amazing at all of these things, and somehow you failed, because
yeah,
of the
yeah,
external examples that we get of like a great mom or a great career woman, we've got all these examples, and that's not sustainable.
it's
And
not.
how
And I suppose social media doesn't help because
it
you
doesn't.
see, all these women where they're opening the fridge and they've got all their food prep done, and while they're taking the kids to school, and then they're off to work, and it's like the people only show you the good bits, right?
Yes. Yeah.
But when you're feeling a bit shitty about yourself, you won't recognize that. You'll just see it that they're doing better than you,
Yeah.
and it's like society has almost set us up to, I don't like the word, but fail because
Yeah.
it's not sustainable.
It's not sustainable. And I think
It's
because we're trying to live to that kind of like masculine blueprint of like, this is what it means to be successful. So I think a more appropriate movement for women is redefining what success means. Success
yeah,
now means to me that I can take my children to school morning and afternoon. I can pick them up every day. It means being able to take Fridays off and do what I want if I want. It means not having to work at the weekends. Like, that's what success means to me. And it's redefine, it's being able to redefine that. And I think the other piece to that question that you asked before about, is that why you think women store trauma in their bodies, is we're not just carrying our own trauma, we're carrying the lineages of trauma from before us, because our I always get this the wrong way around, but when our grandmother, the cells that are the eggs that are in our bodies now were in our grandmother. So we've got that, on a very biological, physiological, scientific point, we have those eggs. And from a more spiritual point of view, like, we are carrying the trauma of, hundreds of years of oppression that we experienced as women in whatever capacity. That's still in our DNA, it's in our programming. And so not only are we having to redefine success on our terms, we're also having to decondition from the trauma and social expectations that were laden upon us even before we were born.
Yeah. Yeah, we have quite a mission now, don't we? In this day and age.
We really do. I feel like I went really deep on you there, Amy.
Yeah, no, I love it. You're so right, and it's just like, you sit there and you wonder, like, how do people? I mean, you hear people all the time talking about depression rates and things like that, and you can see why it happens. But I think you've hit the nail on the head when you say more people are now taking notice.
Yeah.
It's one of those things where, like you say, like, if you'd have asked me 5 years ago, actually, Amy, what do you want out of life? What makes you happy? I wouldn't have been able to answer you. Because I'd have told you what I thought society would want me to do.
Yeah. Yeah. It's
so it's like, for women. Yeah. So it's like 5 years ago, I found myself, separated from my husband. I was 6 years ago, separated, single mum. So in my head, I was beating myself up, because it was like, this isn't what society's told me I should be doing.
Yeah.
It should be, you come out of school, you go to college, you get married, you have kids, and then you live to retire. Yeah. So I was beating myself up for that. So I couldn't have actually told you what I wanted out of life or who I was.
No. I totally hear you. And it's just this, I even think, like, from the education system, it's not set up, it's not designed to get the best out of kids, get the best out of students. And I'm talking as an ex-teacher, coming out of the institutional teaching paradigm, but it's not designed to bring the best out in people, and then we kind of hit our early 20s, and it's like the expectations, well, what's next? Is it marriage? Is it having a baby? Is it having a mortgage? And it's not like, actually, what do I want to do in my life? How do I want to serve people? What is going to make me happy? And I think the problem that comes is, and I work a lot with women in their midlife, is we hit our midlife, we hit perimenopause, and we go, it's like, we can't keep it all together anymore. It's like all of those identities, personalities, masks that we've held on to for like 30 years suddenly just start melting. And then we're addressed with that question, like, you're looking in the mirror and you're like, I don't even recognize the woman that stands in this mirror anymore. It's like classic, like, how do you like your eggs in the morning? I don't know, because my husband, I just have them the same as my husband. Like, it's really yeah. And it's like unpicking all of that. And I was recently diagnosed with inattentive ADHD. Now, I've been misdiagnosed. I mean, maybe I was depressed, and maybe I did have high anxiety, and maybe more likely I was misdiagnosed over the years. Had someone have maybe looked at my trauma and maybe understood why certain things were exacerbated, maybe I wouldn't have been diagnosed with having depression or anxiety, and maybe there would have been more support. I just don't think the system's set up for that at all.
So they knew you passed, and it's like, oh, she must be depressed.
Yeah.
Very sad. I hear that all the time, and yeah, I mean, that doesn't help. So was it when you were diagnosed with ADHD, was it a little bit like a moment like, oh, now this makes sense.
Totally. Like there was so much
Yeah,
emotion the day of my assessment. I wasn't surprised with the diagnosis at all. And then there was just a lot of emotion that day. It was kind of like, again, a grief for who I was, grief for all those years of not knowing, grief for yeah, and this is again, everything has its place, prescription medication has its place. And I imagine that at some points in my life that I probably really did need to have medication. But looking back now, every time I went to the GP and was like, oh my God, I don't want to get out of bed, or I feel like this, or I've got suicidal thoughts. And they were like, we'll give you a tablet. It's like, take the
yeah,
tablet, stop moaning, and a tick off their books. And so, yeah, there was definitely relief and sadness. There was a whole mix of emotions. But it answered a lot of questions. It was like, oh, okay, that makes
yeah.
sense.
And I suppose that was when you kept saying that you've constantly been evolving, that was your next step. So I suppose, did you have to learn yourself again, I suppose, and be okay with it? Yeah.
Yeah, I think one of the really beautiful things is, so my son was diagnosed with autism around about 5 or 6 years ago, and I had to do parenting course with that, and I had to the way that me and my husband are, we're very much like, okay, so if that's what he's got, how do we support him? So we read loads and loads of books, we kind of devoured any information we could so that we could really support him in the best way that we could. And I think the kind of side benefit of that is that actually a lot of the stuff, there's a lot of the things that work really well for him as strategies also work really, really well for myself. So, as a family, we're very, very understanding around overstimulation, saying no when you mean, like, don't just say yes because you think that's what you should do. Low like low lights and things, I can't think of the word I want to but we'll know when to just kind of reduce noise or reduce light within the house. So I think a lot of the time we were practicing a lot of the things as a family, which was really, really useful, because it meant that when I got my diagnosis 3 weeks ago, I wasn't like, oh my God, like what have I got to do? It was like, I kind of was like, okay, like a lot of these things I'm already doing. I know when I'm overstimulated and I need to take myself away from everyone. I know when I'm struggling and I sort of say, look, guys, I need some help. Like I can't even think, what we're going to have for dinner. Like somebody needs to help me. Just even having somebody in the kitchen with me when I'm cooking can just be the thing that I feel
Yeah,
supported.
yeah,
They don't even need to be doing anything. Like, but just knowing there's somebody there chatting to me while we're cooking can just be really supportive.
yeah. So the world is overstimulated though. I mean,
Yeah.
I just we weren't designed for any of this.
No,
you know,
no.
I regularly talk about evolution because we are still modern day cavemen and women walking around.
Yeah.
But today's society with the technology, like you said earlier, we're bombarded all the time. It's not sustainable for anybody.
No.
Yet we are a nation of people that are always on the phone. We use a sat nav instead of a map. You
Yeah.
can literally use your phone for absolutely everything.
Yeah.
It's horrific. And then we expect ourselves to feel mentally right.
Yeah. And I mean, that's us as adults who have got reasoning
Yeah.
skills. We've got regulation skills to some degree, I kind of look at my teenage children and I'm like we didn't have any of this extra pressure. And I do really feel for any teens growing up in this
Yeah.
society. There's never been a time in all history where information is so at the touch of our fingers, like think about AI in the last 12 months. I don't even really think I probably knew what AI was 12 months ago. But think of it now, like how many of us are using it every day as like a support or a tool
Yeah.
or just whatever? It's there and it's so easy. And I think you're absolutely right. We are just consumers of the capitalist structures because it keeps us in it.
Yeah.
I
It
like
does.
a really good example of this. So my son, so he's 9 now, and we have to really monitor YouTube because it just pulls and pulls and pulls and pulls him in. And what we notice if he has any extended time on YouTube, it's like his behavior really shifts. So it has to be a very small amount of time, maybe half an hour at a weekend, and that's it for the week. But it's really interesting noticing how something is designed so well
Oh,
to
yeah.
keep you in, it locks you in, and then it's like there's no, like, I've seen us physically, having to kind of almost peel the child from the iPad, it's like, it is crazy.
Yeah.
And that's life. That is
It is, and
daily life.
it's sad. Yeah, it's so sad because, like I say, we weren't designed, to, like, kids can't be kids anymore.
No.
Not like when we were small and we were out on our bikes and
Yeah.
and doing things. Like, you don't see that anymore, do you? It's
No.
very sad.
It is sad. And we spend quite a lot of time outside. We've got a camper van and we love to go away. But I was laughing with my husband yesterday because I was trying to get our son to go to the park. And he was like, his time had finished on his device, and we're like, why do you go over to the park? And he's like, no, no. So we just sat on the stairs. I'm not doing anything. I'm just gonna sit here. And we were like, I just said to my husband, can you imagine that when we were kids? We used to dread getting grounded. We used to dread having to stay in the house. Like, we would do anything to be out of the house, outside. And now you can't get outside.
Oh, our times change, mate. Our times change. But it is sad. I mean, like, you can even go out for a meal and you'll see, like, it's not just the kids, it's the adults as well, because you'll see a whole family just sat there scrolling on the phone.
Yeah.
It's like we've just lost that connection, that social connection.
We really have. And when you make those connections, you feel so much more alive, it
Yeah.
fills your soul from the inside out. Like, it feels so good. We started doing something a while ago, because we even noticed, like, me and my husband he works from home a couple of days a week, and we would say, oh, should we go for a coffee together? And because it was the middle of the day, we both end up checking emails or answering a message or whatever. And so we're sat at the coffee shop doing exactly what you've just said.
Yeah,
Like,
yeah.
and so we started going on a Friday to the gym together, but like to the sauna and the swim, and the hot tub and stuff. And it was really interesting because we didn't have our phones in there, so we actually, like, chatting again. Like, there wasn't,
Yeah.
like, it's in a locker. Like, I can't touch it. Like, let's have a conversation. And that's been a really, really good thing for our marriage, for our relationship, that we have that time together. And even if it's once every couple of weeks, just making that bit of time together that we can, it's so important.
Yeah. It's that thing about being self-aware again, isn't it?
Yeah, of course. Yeah. And being
'Cause
honest, it comes back to the responsibility and the honesty piece as well. Am I and I tell the kids off for this all the time. We had a what you call it the other day. I said, right, let's check everyone's screen time on Sunday. And mine was just as bad as the kids. It's like,
yeah, yeah.
we've got to own up to it as well, that it is. And then somebody was telling me today that they keep their phone out of their bedroom at nighttime. My phone's next to my bed, but I make the kids have to bring their phones down. And I was like, that's a really good example, isn't it? Like, leading by example. And it's not something that I do. So I think that'll be something that I'll, going forward, I can, like, right, I'm not having my phone in my bedroom if it models and sets a good example for you. But yeah, it is just a very different generation, and one that we're all impacted by.
Yeah, absolutely. But I think there's a positive to this, though, because I see a lot more people now unplugging.
Mm.
So it's like using you to get over, like, trauma and healing. Um, Again, we've got a camper. We unplug from society. You see a lot of people hiking now. You see a lot of people doing meditation retreats and things like that. So people are feeling deflated by society, and you are seeing that shift now. I
Yeah.
mean, it could be bigger in my eyes, but it's
I
getting
think,
there.
yeah. I think people want that connection, and people are realizing, again, it's like the movement within women understanding their role in society and how that needs to be different. Things are moving, things are shifting. It's going back to those rhythms, for
Yeah,
me, going back to the rhythms of nature, being able just to ground by being outside,
yeah,
getting outside, even if it's for 5 minutes for a walk with some fresh air. Going and, like, my kids think I'm crazy, but I'll go and just, like, touch the trees, and really feel them, and take my shoes off so I feel the earth beneath my feet. And it's getting back to those old rhythms of like the moon cycles, and where we're supposed to be in the cycle of the moon, and how that affects our energies as well. And I live kind of not kind of, I'd live by my cycle. So depending on where I am in my own cycle will depend on kind of what physical activities I'm doing, what I'm eating that week, where am I going to expend my energy. If I'm if I'm premenstrual, I'm not going anywhere. Like, I'm hibernating for my own benefit and other
Yes.
people's. But
It's
yeah,
funny you should say that, because I interviewed 2 women last week about perimenopause, and they said the same. Like, just bin it off. We just bin it off, and
yeah,
it's fine to do that. Yeah,
absolutely. Even with my business that I had before, I kind of went into my coaching full time. I had a childcare setting, and we had a period policy. And so the first 2 days of your period, if you were in work, then you were on like reduced tasks for that day. So it just meant that yes, you were still in work, like yes, you were still a body, but actually really honoring that during those first 2 days, our body's doing an awful lot. Like, it's okay to rest. And I think having teen daughters, have a responsibility to teach them, you don't have to just push through, you don't have to just force it. If you've got your period, slow down. Do you need to go and lie down? But those weren't things that I was taught, or I don't think my
no,
generation really were taught. It was
no.
like, you just carry on, like, just keep going. But being able to slow down and take a bit of time, and that comes back to what we were talking about, like getting to really, really know your body, like know the ebbs and the flows of your own energy. My really challenging time of day is between sort of 3 and 5. It's like my brain sort of just switches off. So the last few, and I've been talking loads about this, I'm literally obsessed. So the last 3 weeks I've been experimenting with having an afternoon nap. So I've been 20
Yeah,
minutes yoga nidra right before school pickup. So about 2:30, I'll go and lie down, get my eye mask on, my weighted blanket, make a little nest. And I'll tell you what, like the first week, Amy, there was so much resistance in my body. It was like, I've got so many jobs to do. This is really selfish. I felt really guilty. I'm
yeah,
on week 3 now, and I'm like, hell no, I'm having a nap. Like, I am taking 20 minutes. I'm resetting my
yeah,
body, resetting my brain. But I've really noticed that dip between 3 and 5 has really shifted. It's like I've got a little bit more
yeah,
energy. I don't feel like between 3 and 5, I can feel like I'm literally crawling through the day. So again,
yeah,
it's little resets, isn't it, that can make a massive
yes,
difference. But it requires self-awareness. It requires listening to our bodies. It requires going within,
yeah,
stepping away from the noise of social media that, would maybe have you believe that the only way to be successful is if you get up at 4:45, you meditate for 39 hours, you know, you hike up Snowdon, and then you get your jobs done for the day.
yeah,
It's about knowing ourselves and knowing what works for us.
yeah. I've tried that with the full-on morning routine that you have to do 20 things before you even get out of the house.
Yeah,
Not for me, that. Not for me, that.
no,
No.
no, and
And
it's
I definitely
experimenting,
can't be
isn't it?
in the 9-5 club. Yes, that's it. And we're all different,
Yeah,
and going back to the self-help books and that, not everybody will follow the same self-help book, because we are all different. We all value different things. Our bodies are all different. We all respond differently. And I think we try and put ourselves in a hole by going, nope, got to do this, got to do this. That's probably why you felt so awkward when you was going for your afternoon nap at first,
yeah.
because it was like,
So it's so
you
not
know,
normal.
uh,
And then, think about all them
yeah,
countries that have siestas. Like, it's just the norm.
yes, does, yeah,
you
they
know
do it,
it's like in our
yes.
Western world, we've said no, that's not okay. But yeah, no, I think you're absolutely right. It's like, it's almost like experimenting until you find what works for you. And I think one of the big things that I kind of felt, and again, it was like an identity piece for me when I really started to get to know my own spirituality and what that meant to me. It was like this belief that spirituality looked a particular way, and I had to dress a particular way,
Yes,
I had to be seen to be drinking the right drinks and doing the right yoga and having the right clothes. And it's actually like, actually none of that really mattered. Like, none of that matters. It's
no,
irrelevant. All that
Yeah.
matters is your
Yeah.
relationship with you. And when you shift your
Yeah.
relationship with you, that impacts everyone around you.
I love that. So if somebody sat on the fence going, right, I need more information from Jodie, I want to work with her, where can they find you and what do you offer?
Amazing. So I've got my website, which is www.jodiemclean.co.uk. I usually hanging around on Instagram, which is I am Jodie Mclean, but you can find me on Facebook and LinkedIn and TikTok, all with my name. So find me on there. At the moment, I've actually got a class. I've got a monthly workshop, which is we're working through pleasure. I don't know when this is going to be released, but I've got one tomorrow night. But we've got monthly classes. So if you want to just dip your toe in, you can come and try a class, and they're all online. And then if you want to work with me for an extended period, I've got a container that's called Midlife Rewilding, where we deep dive into all of the identities, the masks that you've been wearing that may be slipping off, coming off. And the really beautiful thing about this container is we've got a gorgeous VIP day at the end with a private spa. So it's really, really
lovely.
It's like dipping back into time and luxury for yourself. So yeah, it's a really beautiful container.
That's it. Like putting all our responsibilities down, right, for a day.
Yes. Yes, absolutely.
Yeah, I love that. Now you mentioned like grounding and walking without any shoes on. There's actually quite a lot of science behind that now, isn't there?
Yeah. Yeah.
So yeah. Go on.
Sorry, go on, Amy. I was going to talk over you.
So obviously I did the brain qualification and we dipped into it slightly. I'd like to learn more about it, but yeah, there is a scientific link between walking on earth with no shoes on, because again, I suppose we weren't designed to wear shoes. Can you imagine if ants walked around with clogs on?
Yeah. I'd pay good money to see that, I'd pay good money to see that.
Yeah.
I think it's like most things, it's like we've almost conditioned ourselves to like switch off to anything sensory. It's like we've desensitized ourselves. I think particularly like even what we watch on TV, like I'll sit and maybe watch something with my husband and I'm like, I actually can't watch this, like it's awful. But it's like we've just spent so many years watching the same thing. And I think like with our feet, it's again, we've desensitized them, and yet on our feet and our hands, you'll know this with Junior Reiki, there is so much sensitivity, there's so much that we can feel, connect with, and the same with our feet. So I think any opportunity ever to get my shoes off outside, I whip them off whenever I can.
Yeah, and you feel better for it.
Yeah. I think as well, it's like that deep connection with the earth as well. It's like that our support system, it's there, it's beneath us, it's holding us, and a lot of times when I'm doing meditation and breath work with people, it's like almost feeling that pulsation of earth, that reminder that we're all connected.
Yes.
Yeah.
You truly are like a beam of light, mate, in this mad world.
Oh, thank you. As are you. It's been brilliant to chat. I could obviously chat all day, as you can tell.
Right, I've got one last question for you. Everybody hates this question.
Okay.
Tell me 3 good things about yourself.
Love that question. I am a bloody brilliant mother and I love my children deeply. I am an incredible space holder. I create very, very safe spaces where people feel very deeply held. And I swear I didn't ask at the beginning. Oh, it's a sweary podcast.
Of course you can.
Yeah, all right. Yeah. I'm funny as fuck, Amy, as well.
Yes, you are. Honestly, you are incredible human being, mate, honestly. So do you think there's any more layers for you to evolve?
Yes, I do. I think like the reality is I'm in this perimenopause void at the minute. So I'm very excited to see what post peri looks like, the menopause phase. And I don't even think like the menopause phase and then what is beyond that. And I'm really learning to just embrace this, it is a portal. It's a gateway into the next version of me, but enjoying being in the void. Yeah.
Yeah, I love that. Absolutely amazing. Well, thank you for joining me. You've been an absolute star. Make sure if you've listened to the podcast, you go and follow Jodie, because you'll just love her posts. She's, like I say, in a world that we argue so much with each other, Jodie brings some peace into it. So keep being that lighthouse, mate. You're absolutely incredible.
Oh, thank you so much, Amy. I really appreciate you inviting me on, and yeah, open discussion. I know before we were kind of like what we're going to talk about, but being able to kind of really share from all aspects, you know, from a quite a challenging journey is always so beautiful. So thank you.
Yeah, lovely. Keep doing what you're doing, mate.
Thank you.
You take care.